Hi there, and welcome to episode 7 of the Hub of Junior Golf podcast. I'm Ryan Bird, joined as always by the founder of the Junior Golf Hub, Roger Nick. And Roger, certainly, first 6 episodes, we have really focused on recruiting, focused a lot, certainly on college coaches. We've had 2 of the best for sure in Conrad Ray and J.C. Deacon as they're now heading into the NCAAs with the hope of winning an NCAA championship. Want to pivot just a bit today, Roger, and so many questions from junior families revolve around equipment. What is the right equipment? Do we try to hit what the pros play? Is it really just walk into a store that sells golf clubs and pick out a set because you like the color of the head and take it home and start hitting it? So there are a lot of questions and a lot of answers and right ways and wrong ways of doing this. So let's just kind of start off with your history as far as, certainly at the Performance Center, you could see the difference that a club can make. I'll ask you a basic question. What do you think is more important for a junior golfer, the actual driver head, we'll start with driver, or the shaft?
Oh, wow, Ryan, I mean, that's a great question. Maybe a little too early for that hard of a question now. I would say the shaft, right? I mean, length from stiffness, things like that. I mean, driver heads or heads today, and especially in the major manufacturers, are so good. It's hard to distinguish between the two, but I think the shaft is probably, the most important thing for a junior golfer right now. Getting the right length, getting the right weight. But I know our guest today with Wally, he's going to be talking more about that. So I'm really excited to hear the updates of where golf equipment is for junior golfers, especially on the heels of. Oh, did you see the incident that happened with I think it was a Korn Ferry Tour player where his driver broke during the course of the round? I'm going blank on his name right now, but I'm sure you know. But I thought that was very interesting how he could switch it out. He could actually dial it into the right weighting and all of that good stuff. So I wonder how that affects, or how that will affect the trickle down to the junior golf space. Very interesting, I thought.
Yeah, that was Korean Soon You'll Know, who obviously went out and I believe he shot 61. Pretty incredible story. And to your point, Wally Gonzalez, the director of custom clubs from the Performance Center, will join us, and really he'll dial us in. Let me ask you this. We know, Roger, an inherent gigantic issue with junior golf is costs. Mm-hmm. It is a pricey sport to begin with, just to go play. It is not like basketball or baseball where theoretically you can just go to a park and play for free. We know golf is expensive, and then golf clubs actually can be the most expensive part. So let's walk this all the way back to our viewers and listeners with really young kids that are starting off with in the game of junior golf. Where do you stand on clubs? Really aren't that important. You can, cut a club down and just get them swinging. And that's really the most important part, is for them, especially at the very beginning, to just start swinging their golf club.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question in the sense of like, where should they be spending their money, right? I mean, early on in their development, and I will say, U.S. kids have done an amazing job with the equipment that they're building, being able to buy single clubs, and also their tour sets, right? So it does make it a little bit more affordable when it comes to the kids who are starting off really, really young. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the equipment cost, the price, it can be just prohibitive for some families to get into the game, which, as you know, one of our goals as our foundation with the USA Junior Golf Federation is to help, kids, supplement, and get right equipment. And there's other companies and organizations out there doing the same thing, which that's going to be very helpful, I think, in the future as the game continues to grow and we'll continue to have more accessible opportunities for kids. So really looking forward to that. But I think for families, I mean, the best thing to do is start out slow. Don't worry about going out and getting, the major manufacturers, if you will, company brands, things like that, it may just be, cost prohibitive. So I would, start slow, just like kind of playing in, competitive golf, start slow, start local, start regional, play state. So I would say save your money early on to when your son or daughter gets to a point where they really want to compete. This is their main sport, and it's where their focus is going to be. And I think that transitional age is probably somewhere between 12 and 14, depending on kind of boy or girl.
Great answer. And I think that's a great segue to welcome in our guest here on episode 7, Wally Gonzalez, the director of custom clubs at the Performance Center. Wally, thanks so much for joining Roger and I today. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your background as we begin this podcast with really trying to give out information and help the families out there that certainly have players that, as Roger said, the aspiration is to someday be a professional, if not a college, if not a high school player. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Wally.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Roger, thanks for having me.
Morning, Wally.
Morning. I'm from originally San Diego. I've been at the Golf Performance Center since I graduated from the University of Hartford from 2015. I played collegiate golf there, and I've always been interested in the equipment side of things. So that's why I've kind of transitioned from a little bit coaching from the juniors. Now I'm going to be more on the equipment side. But yeah, definitely equipment on the athletes, the younger athletes are very important just for their development. Always trying to develop more or less just speed when they're younger. And then from there, hopefully once they get older, get a little taller, get a little bit more speed. That's when they can start transitioning into an adult set and that sort of thing. And that's when they need it.
All right, let's kind of walk through the process, if you will, Wally. And certainly the viewers that we are starting to accumulate around the world watching the Hub of Junior Golf podcast, it really is the families and players that have high aspirations in the game, and they're looking to learn from the coaches we have on, certainly from the recruiting experts, from Roger, who's an incredible source with the Junior Golf Hub, and now youth. So let's just kind of start for our families at home that have a son or daughter that is an exceptional player, that loves the game, that practices the game on their own, that's having fun with the game, and is starting to really show signs that this is a game that they could be pretty good at and possibly play at the high school, the college, or for the very select few, the professional edge. So once you've made that decision, or should I say once the child, Wally, has decided that golf is what they want to do, they love it, they're playing tournaments, what's the first step to, as we hear so many times on the PGA Tour and LPGA Tour, dial in their equipment? What is the first step? Because remember, many of these players are playing with hand-me-downs from somebody else. The clubs have been cut down, or they have just gone from someone else's bag into said son or daughter's bag. What's the first step as far as, quote-unquote, dialing in the equipment?
Yeah, a lot of it is just starting, just getting fit. But most important, just kind of going through their goals, kind of what they want to do. So at the Golf Performance Center, we go through exactly that, what they want to do, what they want to accomplish. Do they want to play collegiate golf, or are they working on certain things in the golf swing that's going to influence kind of what equipment I'm going to be putting in their hands. But for a person that's transitioning who wants to play more collegiate golf, a little higher level golf, just making sure the correct weight of the club is important. Shaft weight, shaft flex, shaft head manufacturers. Definitely when it's a transition set from a U.S. kids to an adult set, the head weights are a little different, 10, 15 grams. I know Callaway does a good job with transitioning, getting a lighter club head. And then from there, I just have to pair up a lightweight shaft. But a lot of it is just making sure the length's appropriate, weight's appropriate, making sure they can hit the ball in the middle of the club face, just making sure that they're able to control that throughout their development, and hopefully that can lead them to play better golf.
Hey, Wally, well, let me just say that Ryan, Wally was being pretty humble here. Wally was an academic All-American at Hartford and played really high level golf. So, I mean, he's being pretty humble. And himself, he's also an equipment geek. So I remember seeing Wally as a collegiate player, and going through. Wally, how many putters did you have at one point?
Too many. I still have a bunch.
Yeah. So Wally, I know one of the things that we see quite often is those kids who are going through transitional growth phases. And I think that's for a lot of parents really concerning because they spend a lot of money, especially that high level competitive junior golfer who goes through a growth spurt and all of a sudden their equipment is way off. What is some of the advice you would give to the parents and juniors, obviously, out there about this transition phase?
A lot of it is just making sure that the length and the weight are important. Definitely just cut down clubs, weights. The shafts are much heavier. The head weights are much heavier. We can always put lightweight extensions towards the end of the club, so it's not like one set's going to be too heavy. It's always important to grow out of the clubs and not grow into the clubs. So a lot of it is just once they hit a certain height, if the driver is a little too short, we can always extend it a couple inches. And then from there, hopefully later on they can start buying some new clubs. But a lot of it is just trying to prolong the expense of having that much stuff.
So yeah. I'll give you guys a story here, a little storytelling time about how insane equipment can be for a junior golfer. As we often do, talk about my son here, who's now playing Division I golf in the ACC. But there was a time, the first time he went on TrackMan, Roger and Wally, the fitter and the instructor that were watching on TrackMan had never seen what was going on before, because the head of his club was it was such a flexible club. It was probably, how we got in this shaft and club, I have no idea, but the head was essentially spinning, 75% around as he would swing because of the shaft, and it was closing like 75%, and he was then manipulating it to hit it straight. And they're looking at this saying, I don't understand how this club isn't breaking, but the head of your driver the flex of it, it's so flexible that the club's actually almost bending around. So, sure enough, it can happen where your son or daughter is in particularly a shaft. And we started off the episode with Roger saying how important the shaft is. I'll be honest with you, the head of a driver, certainly they are making lighter, and there's now, carbon, and there's all these titanium. There's a million different things you can do. The reality is a young player's swing speed, probably the driver head, is not 100% going to change their game. But the story I just told you, the shaft, Wally, especially as players become better and their swing speeds pick up, and they're still in that first shaft that they were when they started. Give us an idea for the family at home, because this is what I see, Wally. I see the parents watching the kid on the driving range with the driver, and all of a sudden you start seeing these giant hooks, and the last thing they're thinking about is this could just be a simple equipment change, that, it's the world's falling, the sky is falling, we have this swing something's happened to the swing. Every other club's fine, but the driver's hooking 75 yards off the driving range. Like, can't that just be the swing speed has picked up so much that now the shaft is not stiff enough, and that club, as I just indicated with my own son, that shaft is just slinging around. What can you watch for at home to make the assessment, wow, I might need to see somebody?
Oh, no, that's definitely a good case, that one. So that's just more droop deflection and twist. So we had our gears guy, Michael Neff, come in this past week. He talked about the importance of droop deflection, and I don't have a golf club here, but droop deflection and twist. And basically how the golfer affects how the shaft bends throughout the swing. Definitely the softer shafts, once I noticed that in a junior, is when they start missing it control. I mean, you mentioned hooks and slices, but a lot of it is they're missing it off the heel, off the toe. They just can't find the rhythm of that. So that's more or less once a parent notices that, it could be time, okay, I have to get my equipment checked out, hopefully move up a stiffness. a lot of it is just making sure it's not too stiff too. You still want a little bit of that play in the shaft, but definitely once it gets too soft, you'll notice the dispersion get a little bit hectic, and exactly what you said, they start searching for, is it my swing, is it the lie angle, it's a whole bunch of things that a junior and a parent could start thinking about, and you just need to go in for a club fitting real quick.
Yeah. Hey, Wally. So one of those things we're talking about there is obviously speed. In this case, as juniors start to gain speed in their club heads speed, if you will. Now you're looking at ball flight. You're looking at launch conditions. So for a junior golfer, are there any ideals? Is there something that people should be searching for? I know, again, as you know, we go to junior golf ranges all the time, or tournaments, and you hear parents talking about, the ball needs to roll out, they need to hit it lower, but ideal launch conditions, or is there anything there for juniors?
A lot of juniors, I would say, is just getting the ball up in the air, making sure the spin is all right. A lot of it is, especially if you get a heavier club in there, it's not going to launch as high, not going to spin as much, and then that's just not going to carry as far. A lot of that is also just based off of speed, I would say. So it's hard for me to generalize a good launch angle, good spin, just based off of just any junior. But attack angle is important. A lot of it is just making sure that they're not too steep on the club, that affects the launch and the spin of the outcome of the golf ball, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we see a lot with junior golfers, right? So when a kid or a parent notices that maybe their kid isn't hitting as far as another player that they're playing with, they immediately go to the heavier, longer club, and we see this unfortunately too often. What that also does is create more steepness in the swing, because the kid can't actually swing the club without moving their body into the golf ball, and so it gets a little steeper, so they kind of lose, again, the attack angle that they're probably wanting to get, and putting too much spin and launching it too low because the club is too heavy and too slow. Would you say also one of the things that you said it earlier, you said you want to see the kids growing out of the club, not growing into the club, and that's really important, because we're talking about also the windows of development here, where speed is important. And I know Ryan and I were talking to some coaches earlier in a couple other podcasts here about speed is everything, right? So we want to make sure that these kids, or the parents, are understanding that putting the right equipment in the hands of their junior golfer is so important to develop those speed, or the speed windows, for later on in their junior golf careers. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely build up the speed, and you can control it later once they start developing. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I heard Cameron Young say in an interview last, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, somebody asked him about, how prodigious, how long he is on the tee, and he mentioned something about his dad, David Young, who's also a club professional at Sleepy Hollow, and mentioned to him, hey, we can learn how to control it later. Just swing as fast as you can and hit it as far as you can, and we'll figure out how to control it later. I think that doesn't necessarily resonate with a lot of parents out there, because I think they're so concerned about their kid hitting the fairways and hitting it straight and scoring and winning, titles at 9 and 10 and 11 years old, versus developing the swing. Is that something that you would encourage, is to get the right equipment?
Oh, definitely. It's definitely just getting the right weight of the club, and just making sure they have a good time playing golf at a young age, and then from there they can keep going if they like it. Yeah, definitely.
So I would have to think a lot of folks that are in that first phase are now saying, okay, all this sounds great, but who's actually equipped to do this? So when you go buy shoes for your kid, you go to a shoe store and they pull that metal thing out. Your kid takes his shoe off and he puts his foot in, and they tell you what size and what kind of instep he has, and they bring you out a couple different pair of shoes. So Wally, when you're driving down the street, you really don't see, club fitter on a sign somewhere. So give us an idea. Are they, one size fits all? They're all just as good as the next. It really doesn't matter who you go to. There are some that are better than others. There are some that have no idea what they're doing, that could actually, spend a bunch of money and you still be wrong. how do you know who is properly equipped and who do you call? Where do you go to see if the clubs your kid has are actually okay right now, or if it's time to take that next step with the different shaft or club head?
Gotcha. And just club manufacturers in general, I know US Kids does a really good job with the younger guys, with the shorter and just beginners. Transition sets are when it gets a little tougher. That's when the head weights, shaft weights become a little bit more important. So going to a club fitter, going to your local PGA professional if they have any junior golf experience, that would be the next place I would go to. And then from there, just setting up club fittings.
What about the big box? What about the big box golf stores around America? Is it easy as going in there, or is that dicey?
I would say it's a little dicey. A lot of it is just, I know I'm not a parent yet, but just going through, just researching, kind of what the best options are, and going to a club fitter that you can trust. I know like Callaway does a good job with box sets, with younger transition sets. Cobra does a good set. Ping does a good set. I mean, they all do a good job. A lot of it just making sure it's the right weight and size. That's the main point.
Yeah, it sounds like one of the tough things here, Ryan, and if we get to the heart of your question is, I think the real thing is that don't waste money on getting equipment sold to you versus getting the right equipment, for you. And I think that is one of the things.
How do you do that, Roger?
I think what you need to do is ask yourself as a parent and as a player, where am I developmentally? And then what are my ultimate goals, right? So I think doing the research out there, going, following on, as Wally said, the club fitters out there, PGA professionals who are working within the club space, who know the technology. And, we use gears, for example, as one of the technologies for us to be able to measure the clubs and see exactly the droop, the deflection, all of those things that you were talking about earlier with your son. If somebody doesn't really have the expertise and the knowledge based on the science of the club, I think it's really important to say, hey, let me reach out and ask somebody like Wally Gonzalez at the Golf Performance Center, where should I go? Should I go to a Golf Galaxy or a Dick's Sporting Goods, or should I go to a Club Champion, or any of those Club Connect, Club Fits, and I'm not saying any of them are bad, but the reality is, let's face facts here. People want to sell the equipment, and I think one of the great things that we try to make sure is that we're agnostic when it comes to the club manufacturers. So our goal is to find out, what is your goal, so you can actually fit the person relative to what they're trying to aspire to, versus, hey, I just need equipment.
Roger, is this a case where certainly the folks that are listening and commenting every week on the podcast, where they can call the Junior Golf Hub, and obviously they're a member from watching this podcast, but an opportunity where they could talk to someone at the Junior Golf Hub, no matter where they live in the United States, and have a little bit of guidance as far as who you guys recommend?
Absolutely. Wally, and you can probably ask them to call yourself. I mean, that would be a good one. So,
yep.
So once again, Roger, just tell us, to everyone watching, how they go about joining the Junior Golf Hub and utilizing now this service that we're talking about, where so you're sitting at home, you're driving to work, you're driving to pick your kid up at school, and you're listening to this podcast, and you're a little overwhelmed right now because you're hearing about shafts and fittings for the first time. Your kid's progressing, loves junior golf. That's why you're listening. But now that next step is to properly get fit. How do you join the Junior Golf Hub from this podcast, Roger?
Absolutely. Go on juniorgolfhub.com, use your Hub of Junior Golf or Junior Golf code, and plug that in and get a free access to juniorgolfhub.com.
And even as so many of you are doing, leaving comments, especially on the YouTube page, about this podcast, if you have questions, you can leave the questions there, and we'll have Wally or someone that is certified be able to get to you and kind of help you through the process. Wally, you had mentioned putters, that you had more than one. That is another question that almost seems to be the club that is forgotten in the junior golfer's bag. And I think the reason that is because, go back to expense, but as the driver's changing or the irons are changing, the putter, for the most part, it seems to be that is a club that can be the exact same from start to finish. Is that true? Does a putter need to be changed as a player ability and growth changes?
I wouldn't say that's one that does not need to be changed. A lot of it is once they find a putter that they can start online and they can do it really consistently. That's a head shape, head style that I would encourage them to just keep for the rest of their playing careers. If they get a new putter, a lot of it is just finding a new look, finding a new style, but that's just all preference. Performance-wise, just making sure that they know head style, head shape, hosel, that sort of thing. If they can start the ball on their line consistently, that's the putter for them.
What's your take on that, Roger? Certainly, we know junior golf is copycat, and we understand that. You watch the professional tours on the weekend, and you try to emulate it. Certainly, we are now once again. You think Adam Scott's all the way back to the broomstick, just not anchoring it against his chest. But you see that. We see the arm lock. We see little putters, long putters, mid-sized putters. We see mallets. We, of course, see a little bit of everything. Our buddy Nota Begay putts both righty and lefty. I mean, there's a lot of ways out there to putt.
Yeah.
What's your advice on finding a putter?
I would say, find one that you like to look at. There are thousands and thousands of different combinations, putter shafts, angles, two ball to, spider putter. I mean, I think I'm going to go find a spider putter like Jason Day for sure after this weekend watching him putt. But no, I think as Wally said, you got to find something that looks good to you, and there is a science to it. How our eyes see things, how the shaft's bent into the head of the putter, whether it's a center shafted putter or a heel shaft or toe droop putter, all of those things matter. The weight matters. I think one of the things that happens right now is that putters are a little easier to walk into a Golf Galaxy or a store and pick one up and say, "Oh, I like this putter. It looks good, and this guy on tour uses it, so I'm going to buy it." Versus actually looking at the length, looking at the weight, and actually does your eyes actually follow the putter properly? I know we used to do, and we still do, Dell putter fittings at the Golf Performance Center, and the number of combinations there and the science behind how your eyes actually track the center of the putter versus millimeters inside the center of the putter based on whether it's a mallet head, whether it's a Wally, I'm going blank on the
mallet.
Mallet, and what's the other one?
A hosel style, and also the line on the putter head.
Yeah, where the line is on the putter face, or I'm sorry, on the top of the top line of the putter. It's really important, right? I mean, how you see that actually makes a difference, and I think without a line, it makes a difference. So I think when you're going and looking at putters, you need to have a little bit more open-mindedness to think that just because someone else is actually using it, it doesn't mean it's right for me. And I think, unfortunately, it's too common that players just, Dustin Johnson, shooting, 20 under, and Jason Day, using a spider or whatever. I mean, that's the hot putter. That means it's for me. I just don't think that actually works.
Wow, that is great advice, Roger and Wally. Certainly, from the putter is concerned. We did touch on shaft. Wally, I know we got to get you out of here, but I definitely want to tackle. We understand that the golf ball is a huge part of the professional game when you're playing at a level that, you're talking about less than 0.00001% of the world can ever play. But should a junior even care what kind of golf ball they're playing? If they find a golf ball and it doesn't have many scuffs on it, is it all right to put it in the bag? Or is there such thing as a bad golf ball? I'm not talking about a practice golf ball from the range, because obviously that is that's a completely different situation. But
Sounds like you had a couple in your bag there, Ryan.
just for the water holes, Roger. Should a junior golfer even care about the golf ball or care about it, whether it's a spin ball or a distance ball? Is there such a thing for a junior player?
I would say as long as the ball is consistent. Once golf balls start changing, so if you go from like a high spin golf ball, low spin golf ball, a lot of it, or high launch, high, low launch, you can definitely tell is it the club that's producing this? Is it my swing that's producing this? So just making sure the golf ball is consistent, I would say, is important. Junior golfers, younger ones, I wouldn't say matters too much. But once they get to a level of speed and they can notice the launch and the spin of that around the greens, and that's kind of when you would need to take a look at that a little bit more carefully.
I mean, Roger, getting back to expense, the golf ball business, especially for a player starting out, because you lose a lot of balls when you're starting out. There is a drastic difference in price in a box of golf balls, whether you're Amazon or you're going to your pro shop or a big box. There is a massive difference in price. Certainly, you would think that is warranted, that there's a reason there's a difference. What's your take?
Absolutely. Well, the golf ball manufacturing is obviously it's a big business, right? So it is Titleist's number one thing is their golf ball, and same with many others, right? So I would say for most parents and juniors, don't, again, as I said earlier with the equipment, this is part of the equipment. Don't spend so much money early on. Save your money. Wait until you get to where golf is your primary sport or it is your focus sport. Those dollars do add up over time for sure. I do see too often you go to these U.S. Kids Championships and I mean they're spending what is it now, $75 for a dozen Pro Vs or Callaway golf balls. So I would say wait and until you can control your golf ball well enough at a certain age, and you can know that by going through our player development assessment and understanding what your controllability is of your golf ball. So if you can't do that, I don't think it's that important at this point, right? I think once golf is your primary sport, you're looking to play high-level competitive golf or collegiate golf, then you're talking about, hey, you know what? I need to control my golf ball better. The balls do matter. It is something that everyone should be taking a look at seriously. Wally said it earlier when he does a club fitting, he does an interview with the player and says, hey, what is your goals? Again, all of those things will have a role in this, right? And what golf balls to play. So I do think eventually it matters, but early on, save the money. U.S. Kids does a really good job of getting some golf balls for their kids players. So does Wilson, so does Callaway. They all have entry-level golf balls that will not break the bank.
Okay, great advice. Last thing, Wally, I want to touch on the driver head. Certainly most manufacturers now are providing that head where you can change the shaft as the player progresses. I understand it's a business and there's a reason that they introduce a new driver every year is because they want to sell golf clubs. That's how their share price goes up and they make money. If you have a really good driver and you spend the money once for that driver head and it has a shaft that you can continue to change as your player moves, is there really that kind of technology year to year to year that let's just take a Callaway, their top model driver from, let's go back to 5 years ago. As long as the shaft's correct, is anything really going to change on your player's drive in 5 years if they were using the new head or the old head?
5 years, I wouldn't say too much. It gets it to when it's like 10 years plus. I would say that the mishits are just much better with the new stuff. That's the only thing you're really paying for. And if it's a good shaft for the 5 year ago head and it's still good on a sweet spot, I would say, yeah, keep it.
Roger?
If it's not broke, don't fix it, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, certainly we understand that for junior golf, equipment is, it is an expense. There's really no way around that. We understand that for families out there that a commitment to your junior golfer is difficult because it's a very expensive sport, from tournaments, certainly to practice, to coaching, to where they're going to play, to buying the golf balls, and ultimately buying the clubs. So, Wally, we appreciate your expertise today. Certainly provided some real good food for thought, and we know that a lot of these listeners and watchers will be getting a hold of you if they need some advice down the road. Thanks for joining the podcast today, Wally.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Wally.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Bye.
So, Raj, I mean, that's at the end of the day, Wally gave us a lot to think about. My big takeaway is, especially he talks about, a driver head. If you're spending $300, $400, $500 for one of these new drivers, you're going to be able to change shafts yearly. And shafts aren't cheap either. I get that. But the reality is you don't need to go buy the new driver every year. It's really, especially for a junior player, that you're not, it might even be worse. I mean, there's a chance, like you said, if it's not broke, don't fix it. There's a chance that you might not even hit it as well. And now you're sitting here with $1,000 in drivers when you end up going back to the old one.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll tell you a little story, Ryan. I mean, about 4 or 5 years ago, I did a little survey or a study, kind of unofficial study on driver distance and changing drivers, new drivers. Did it with about 60 different players and gave them new equipment. And I allowed them to use different equipment over time, over a period of time, I should say, and said, let's see how much driver distance you actually do gain with a new driver. And what I really found was it was less than 3 yards, right, of changing this new driver head that came out and said, hey, we're going to get 12 more yards. Right. But the fact is that most people don't hit it in the center of the club face enough. And therefore they kind of think, hey, this new driver, it's going to work for me. And it sounds great. And it really is. And again, I'm not saying anything's wrong with any of the manufacturers' clubs. It just, we're humans and we don't produce the same swings every single time. So I think, for those who are in the junior space, just be aware of that. Again, to your point, there is no need to go out there and spend $300, $400, $500 on a new driver head and a $300 shaft when you can't control your golf ball and you're going to grow another 6-7 inches from 13 to 18, right? So it just, it doesn't make a lot of difference, quite honestly, right? So, and that's not to, I don't want to tell anybody not to go, spend the money they want. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your money and your time. So, but I think that's one of the things that we see too often, to your point, is people, Tiger's hitting this driver, JT's hitting this driver, I got to go get the newest, latest, greatest. And quite frankly, it just doesn't always pan out the way we think it would.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, especially for young junior golfers, spend your money on proper instruction.
100% spend it on the right things. Spend it on your body. Spend it on learning your mental skill sets, your course, going out to the golf course and playing in tournaments. Spend it on those things. All the other things will take care of themselves as you kind of continue to develop. That's for sure.
And really the ship that is leading this entire charge of junior golf and educating the thousands and thousands and thousands of junior golf families is the Junior Golf Hub. One more time, Roger, for everyone watching now, scratching their head about, is the reason their kid is hitting it poorly all of a sudden is because maybe they haven't progressed to a new shaft and they want to get in touch and use the hub to their advantage. How do they go about doing that?
Absolutely. Go to the juniorgolfhub.com, log in, use your code hub JRGolf. Use that code, get a free subscription there. Log in, go into the Essentials Guide, see all this great information that we're talking about. Go to the PDI section or player development section, see things that you need to learn about, know that where you are in your golf development. So be very helpful.
And if you missed last week, we talked a lot about the Player Development Index, and especially at the start of summer, we're huge believers, Roger, you and I, in setting goals. And, not necessarily a score in a tournament really tells you if you're improving or not improving just because of the variables of weather, of, you chipped in twice. Does that mean you're really 6 shots better than the last time you played? Or was it just like if you 3? So use the PDI to your advantage. Take the test now. Take the test at the end of the summer and see if you are progressing. Roger, great as always. Episode 7, I think, answers a lot of questions. Once again, we ask you to ask us questions. We'll get you the answers. If we don't have them, we'll find someone that does. As really, that's the goal of this podcast, is to help all these junior golf families out there. So for Roger, Nick, I am Ryan Burr. This has been episode 7 of the Hub of Junior Golf.